Hello, so excited you're here. We are going to kick off this webinar, which is how to calm your body and clear your mind using body-based strategies to help manage stress. We're going to be diving into how is stress impacting you, how to watch for your stress signs, learning about when to know when to reach for some tools. Then we're going to dive into what are body-based strategies and how can you use them. And we'll end talking about habits. So how can we actually use these things in our everyday life? I'm your host, Maria Service. I am an occupational therapist as well as a stress management and resilience coach and the owner and founder at Maria Service LLC. So glad you're here. So in this first segment, I really want to talk about signs of stress, frustration, irritability. So if you are coming to this webinar, part one is focusing on how do you experience stress in your body. So if we're talking about stress reduction, and if you're here just for the tools, tips, and strategies, that is going to be in part two. So feel free to hop to part two, but please do come back to this part one, because if we are going to really know and use tools to manage our stress, we need to get comfortable with really naming our stress. Like, what causes stress in your life? How do you experience stress? Because the only way we're going to get better at kind of managing it is if we can recognize the early signs of it, or if we're kind of in a chronic stress state, be able to kind of identify those signs as well, so that we can insert some type of tool and strategy to better help. So this first part is really important, kind of figuring out, how do you experience stress? So do you notice stress because you're feeling more anxious and nervous? Do you get angry and irritable? Do you notice it more as kind of like a depressed, low mood crying? Fatigue, are you tired a lot or withdrawn? Do you feel overwhelmed? Is it hard to sleep? Sometimes we might notice a change in our eating habits. Are you constantly getting headaches or muscle aches and pains, chest pain, or stomach upset? Or how else might you experience stress in your body? How do you know when you're stressed? And if this is hard for you, I want you to really take a moment to sit down and kind of like try to identify those signs of stress. If you're here for this webinar, it might be because you've been experiencing this for a while, or maybe something more stressful has come up in life. So it's good to just jot down maybe like what brought you here. What are those signs of stress that you can pick out? More importantly, not only can some of these symptoms just build up as your stress maybe kind of builds as well, but also just note, even just in the day-to-day, how do you go from kind of waking up, starting your day, and when do you start noticing some of those stress symptoms? All of this will be important once we get to the third section of this presentation and of this webinar, which is about how are we really going to implement these tools. So take some time just to think about what are some of your signs of stress. Oops, there we go. Then I really want you to note that stress really does have an impact on our body. So the thing about it is, I think oftentimes we think, oh, like stress, it's just something we all live with, and we don't really think about how it's impacting our body. And of course, stress is part of life. We are going to have to live with that. But I think it is good to have an understanding on just how our emotions impact our energy system, because it might help us feel like we actually have more control than we think over this. So we know now, based on different research, that emotions can actually either be renewing on our energy system. So when we're experiencing feelings such as peace, joy, love, gratitude, calm, happy, those types of emotions actually are renewing for our energy system. They give us energy, they kind of get back some of our battery for the day. So it's not that these emotions are just only in our head or that they give us just a kind of a placebo effect of warm fuzzy. But actually, physiologically, these emotions are renewing for our energy system. Whereas, no surprise, emotions like sadness, grief, anxious, anger, some of those that we peg negative emotions, they're going to be more depleting on our energy system because of the amount of cortisol or stress hormone that's being released in our body. One thing I want you to remember is that emotions are information that can help us figure out how is my body reacting to a situation, an event, a trigger, a person, whatever it is. Think of that emotion that comes up as a piece of information, and that information can help you discern what to do next. So I know sometimes people may want to avoid, ignore, distract if a certain situation is making them upset or angry. I want you to know that the emotion, you're just naming it, excuse me, to help you figure out what to do next. Like, how can I help my body kind of like move through this? But at the end of the day, even if you just ignore how a situation makes you feel, the physiological response is still happening in your body. So if something happens in your day and it's really upsetting, but you try to ignore it, distract, or pretend like it didn't happen, well, to be honest, the cortisol already has been released in your body. So your body is already discerning there's some stress or something going on because of what happened. And by you kind of avoiding it or ignoring it, it doesn't actually help your body kind of get back to normal or balanced. Something else to think about is that our emotions and how we experience them. So I want you to remember, really, emotions are just a name that we're giving an experience that we feel inside our body. So we might name it differently if we're worrying and feeling anxious, as compared to if I'm feeling sad. That feel is a little bit different for me. Either way, all of that is impacting our internal physiology. And the name of the emotion is just how we are kind of labeling that experience. So for this next part, I want you to think that emotions can also be felt at different intensities. And it's linked to our autonomic nervous system. So we have the fight or flight system, right? That's that fight, flight, freeze, flee or freeze, and that's our sympathetic nervous system. Okay, that protects us from danger. It kind of senses if it perceives that we're in danger, and that's where that stress hormone or cortisol is going to be released in our body. In comparison, we have the rest digest system, the parasympathetic nervous system. That's what helps calm our body when the perceived danger, stress is gone. It's what kind of helps us just ease up and relax again. And really all day, our body is kind of going back and forth between these two systems, and it's a bit of a balance and it's a dance. Where it can become problematic is when the sympathetic nervous system, that fight flight system, when it's getting overactivated, it's always on and it's having a hard time shut off. Okay. But we can experience these emotions though at different intensities. So I can be a little bit angry or I can be a lot of bit angry, depending on how intense that emotion is in my body and how kind of worked up or dialed up my fight or flight response is. So let's say I'm feeling angry because someone cut me off in traffic. Now, I could be, let's just say, with my own personal experiences, when someone cuts me off, I could either just be slightly annoyed. Like, okay, like that's frustrating. I'm irritated. So intensity of my anger is like a 2 or 3. It kicks up my stress response a little bit, but then I'm like, okay, whatever. And I go back to listening to my music on the radio and I keep driving along on my commute. So for that, my body was irritated when the person cut me off. And then I quite easily kind of recovered and my body was like, well, whatever. I'm going to like play music and I'm kind of over that. So the intensity wasn't so high. Whereas in comparison, let's say I'm someone that I've been in a car accident before, or maybe I just had an argument with my spouse. So I'm already feeling a little bit on edge. My anger, irritability is already at like a 3 or 4 as I leave for my commute that day. And then this person cuts me off. what's going to happen is now my anger irritability is going to be really set off. I'm really ticked that this person cut me off, and I'm feeling really angry in my body. So for that, I'm at like a 7, 8 now, intensity wise. So I'm at a higher intensity of an anger level because I already wasn't in a great space because I left in an argument from the morning. So I just want you to note that there is this intensity as well, that we can experience emotions. Depending on the intensity, that might dictate what tool, what strategy you might use to kind of manage your stress. Now, if you're here, you are kind of interested in what are some ways then that I can manage all this stress in my body. Because again, we do know that it is part of the human experience to have some stress in our life. However, it can be part of the human experience as well to get better at kind of managing and moving through that. So at the end of the day, if you are on team stress management, that means you are really, really looking for a way to work through, manage, and kind of clear out difficult emotions. And so I really want to distinguish that from this is not, team stuffing down emotions, ignoring, avoiding distraction. That is not going to be as helpful in the long run. When you experience stress in whatever form, when something upsetting or irritating happens to you, just remember the chemical reaction is already happening in your body, whether you name it or not. So you're better off naming and acknowledging how you feel so you can start to figure out what can I do to get back to balance. At the end of the day, you are more in the driver's seat than you think, to balance out the physiology, to decrease the amount of cortisol in your body than you think. And so some of these body-based strategies that I'm going to talk about can really help with that. So there are sort of kind of two different trains of thought to approach stress management. And ultimately, I kind of find like a combination is really helpful. So mindset-based strategies kind of focus on getting your mind right when it comes to managing stress. Practicing mindfulness, exploring different types of meditation, expressing gratitude or maybe having a gratitude journal, working with someone for mindset coaching, or maybe even going to therapy. Body-based approaches, and we're going to talk more about that in today's webinar and kind of trial some of those. That's more about grounding into your body. It can include things like yoga, heavy work, which we'll discuss, sensory tools, and then you can even work with a coach or a therapist or someone who's certified in biofeedback to help you kind of further work on these body-based strategies. And lastly, kind of a third just thing that can really help with stress management is planning in time for self-care. So really just planning in activities that bring you joy, activities that consciously help uplift your mood. So these are really kind of a mindset and body-based approach. But if you really enjoy gardening, do gardening if you know that it uplifts your mood. That can really positively impact your stress. Or if you love coloring, add back in some coloring into your day. So another way we can really intentionally manage our stress is by engaging in activities that we really enjoy and love. I think oftentimes we get into the mindset of, if it doesn't have a purpose, if it's not related to work or home management or raising your kids or your family or whatever that is, we think that it's not as important, but it is really important to be your most effective self, is to plan and schedule self-care or leisure activities. Lastly, I just wanted to reiterate this concept again about that intensity of emotions because it can impact what tool you might use. So this is just that, for example, anger. You could experience that at a 2 out of 3 intensity. So your sympathetic nervous system, that fight flight isn't as activated, not as much cortisol is released into the nervous system or into your body. Whereas, for example, when you're really angry, that's going to be more cortisol, more fight or flight. Your system is really highly activated. So I just want you to know the intensity of what you feel and how you feel an emotion. It really does impact what's going on internally as well. And it might dictate what kind of tool you want to use. For example, if you're just a little bit irritated, if you're just feeling a little bit sad, a little bit stressed, whatever that might be, using something like just a meditation might be enough to help you be like, okay, I'm good. So listening to a 2-minute gratitude meditation, practicing 2 minutes of mindfulness. Sometimes just that mind-based approach alone, when an emotion's not that intense, can be effective. However, today we're focusing on body-based strategies. And I also call those grounding techniques. Grounding techniques because you're really grounding your body. And that's what today's webinar focuses on. The reason why I like those is because they tend to work better if we're maybe experiencing stress at a higher intensity, like something is really setting us off. And also it's a pretty quick and effective tool, those body-based strategies. So it is why, to be honest, whatever intensity of emotion you are at, the body-based tools can be a really quick, effective way to use no matter what. All right, so this kind of concludes the end of part 1. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening, just to get a little bit more of that background information about how stress impacts you. I think that's really helpful if you're going to look at how can I really work in some of these stress management tools. It's helpful to know how your body experiences stress, and even to have that background information of how this really is impacting my body, and knowing that there is that intensity, and that kind of also impacts how it's being experienced inside your body. So I look forward to seeing you in part 2, where we are going to dive more into those body-based strategies. Thank you. So in part 2, we are actually going to explore the different body-based strategies that you can use to shift out of frazzled, stressed, overwhelmed, whatever it is. However, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about why body-based tools can be effective. I have found for me that if I'm going to be more likely to use a stress management tool, it's helpful for me to understand why. So your buy-in and your belief that a tool can help is really helpful when you are trying to reach for something that's going to calm your nervous system and kind of manage your stress. So oftentimes our mind can get stuck in thinking mode. So we just rattle off the to-dos. We're thinking about kind of the past and a conversation that upset us, or we're maybe worrying about a conversation with our boss or a loved one over a difficult topic that's coming up. Whatever the case may be, it can be hard to shut the thoughts off. We get stuck there. So these body-based approaches, what's nice is that it's not like I'm asking you to do a complete thought shift or a mind shift. We're really just asking like, hey, kind of like get out of up here all the thoughts and come into your body. Okay, so it can sometimes be a really effective way to manage your stress that doesn't feel like you're having to do a complete mindset shift. With that said, oftentimes if your body is feeling, again, a higher intensity emotion, so at a higher intensity, you're feeling really stressed out and overwhelmed and like you just can't manage it. Maybe that last phone call was just everything it took out of you, and now you are just ticked for the day, and it's only 10, okay? Whatever that is, if your nervous system is that kind of stressed out, thoughts alone isn't going to help anyways. And so at that point, if you use one of these body-based approaches to calm your nervous system down first, it is ultimately going to drive more positive thoughts. So the theory behind kind of these body-based strategies comes a little bit with that occupational therapy background. So oftentimes as OTs, we use a type of activity called heavy work, oftentimes with children. So with kids that OTs might work with, they might be really dysregulated. They might have struggle with focusing. They might have a struggle with perhaps like modulating their emotions. Again, as kids, they're just learning how to do these things. So oftentimes teachers, OTs, they might use these activities that are heavy work. They're grounding. It's a type of activity that pushes and pulls against the body. There's that resistance there. The thing is, heavy work is not just effective for kids. It's effective for adults too. We have the same nervous system. And so even though as adults, we may not look like we're all over the place, toddlers or, young kids. To be honest, that's sometimes how we feel inside when we're feeling that stressed out. And so a lot of the strategies that we employ with kids are very effective for us as adults too. Heavy work is known to be organizing and regulating on our nervous system. And really, it's engaging one of our senses called proprioception. It helps our body know where it is in space because it's pushing or pulling against something, it's resisting something. Another sense that body-based approaches kind of tap into is our sense of interoception. What is going on with my body? Okay, so it's our ability to know when we're hungry or when we're full or when we're feeling sleepy. It's just, how do I know what's going on internally? Body-based approaches can help with that, as well as just kind of get us connected. And so that can be very calming for the nervous system. And then lastly, some of the body-based approaches that we'll talk about are great because they tap into the sense of smell. And smell is one of our senses that actually bypasses the typical connection center, the thalamus, that a lot of our senses go through, so that we can kind of consciously register them. Whereas the sense of smell actually bypasses that, and it goes right to the area of our brain associated with emotion and memories. So smells can be great for calming. Okay, so some of the body-based grounding techniques that you can try at work. Yoga stretches or poses. So you do not have to be a yoga master to find some of these tools and strategies effective. The next slide will have some photo examples because you might not be able to see the full example here on camera. But for example, like just going into a simple plank pose can be really effective. Or if you've ever seen child's pose, it's where you're kind of laying on the ground and you're going to be in a position where your arms are sprawled out in front of you. Your forehead is going to kind of connect or get close to the earth. And it's going to be like you're kneeling. So your legs are going to be bent. That's child's pose. Downward dog. Downward dog is a pose that I'll have a picture of on the next, but it's literally like you're pushing the earth through your arms and you're kind of pushing your butt up into the air. Okay, very grounding for the body. Another one is prayer pose. Okay, now the thing about a yoga prayer pose is either this itself might be grounding for you, focusing on your hands touching, but to add a little bit more pack to the punch to this move, I would recommend adding some pushing. Okay, so you're going to pair it with breath by inhaling and you push through your hands together as you move up, and then you're going to exhale and relax. Okay, again, inhale, push through your hands, push through the palms, exhale. Now notice when you do a move like that, you're not thinking about the 20 million to-dos that you have. It's easy to let some of that stress melt away. And to be honest, that act of pushing is what's calming and regulating for the nervous system. It's giving kind of a place for that stress to go. It's allowing you to clear and shift through it without like stressing you out more, perhaps. So again, I call it a pushing prayer pose where you're going to push and you're going to inhale in, exhale, relax down. Okay, so that's a good pose. Another one is a brisk walk. So a brisk walk itself could be grounding and stress relieving. And for sure, some of you, maybe you try to add in a walk at lunch or you add in a walk after work. But know that some of these things, we think a lot of these movements as just exercise. So you think you have to do them for 20, 30, 40 minutes. When in fact, if we're really just looking to get a calming, grounding effect to manage our stress during midday, we can get it out of our heads that it has to be for 30, 45 minutes. Just doing a minute, 2 minutes, 4 minutes of a brisk walk from your, let's say from your cubicle if you're at work, or from your home office or you're at home, to and from the bathroom, really fast for a minute, back and forth. or to make it more grounding and maybe calming, because to be honest, a brisk walk could also just be alerting if you're feeling low energy. You could add some weights. Okay, so great stress reliever, add some light weights to your hands, lotion bottles, water bottles, just something that has a little resistance, and just do a couple of laps back and forth to the bathroom. Okay, can have a simple grounding, calming effect, bring you back to your desk feeling clearer. Okay, so we're talking about ways to add little small doses throughout your workday, throughout your home day, so that you can more easily and effectively clear through and manage your stress versus waiting until the end of the day when it's all built up, and then trying to figure out, okay, now what do I do before you go home or before you spend time with your family. All right, so that's the brisk or weighted walk. Chair push-ups is one of my favorite. Now, I don't have a chair with armrests, but if you're at home or at the office and you have a chair with armrests and preferably no wheels, that's going to be best. I'm going to demonstrate how I do a chair push-up and how it's effective at grounding, but I'm just sitting on a stool, so there's no armrests, but I'm pushing up from the seat, the chair seat itself. So chair push-ups, you are going to push up. So if you have an armrest, you're pushing through the armrest and down. Okay, so if you had armrests, your arms would be more here and you'd kind of be going up and down, but my hands are just on the bottom of this chair. Now, it can be very regulating for the breath. So how I'm going to have you try a chair push-up as a grounding technique is similar to the prayer pose. You're going to inhale as you go up, exhale as you slowly lower down. Inhale up, pushing through your arms. So you're lifting your butt off the chair, and then exhale down. Okay, so your feet are staying planted on the ground. Your arms are likely on the chair armrests, and you're just doing this. Pushing up, inhale, slowly lowering down, exhale. Now again, you'll also feel like, oh, that feels great for my arms. And that's great. It's a double whammy. You are doing a little bit of toning for your arms. But primarily, I want you focused on how this calms and regulates my nervous system. So you really just need to do 3 slow ones after a frustrating conversation or after a difficult phone call, just to help re-regulate your nervous system. Okay, so for a lot of these tools, don't get hung up on, oh, I need to do this for 10-15 minutes. You can squeeze these in to just short little periods of time throughout your day. Hand fidgets or putty. You can get putty. Oh, here's mine. Online from stores, often in the kids section, but this is not just for kids. So putty is a form of heavy work that you can just do with your hands. And the beautiful thing about putty or resistance putty, theraputty it's called, is that it does come in different resistances or firmness levels. And so you can just practice squeezing it. So it's kind of like a stress ball, but you can also pull it. Okay. Now I'm making bigger, larger movements here, but excuse me, let's just say that you have a stressful meeting with someone on Zoom or something, or a phone call maybe. But let's say it's on Zoom. Now notice I am squeezing this putty. And let's say I'm talking to a frustrating coworker and I'm smiling on screen, but I'm feeling frustrated. And I am squeezing my putty. I'm kind of pushing my thumbs into it. And notice how I'm literally kind of working on just managing and moving through and shifting through my stress as I talk. And you can barely tell that I'm using the putty. Okay, so firm resistance therapy can be a great tool to use. Slurping a thick liquid can actually be very grounding for your body. So maybe you do a smoothie for breakfast, midday, lunch, but actually when you sip a thicker liquid through a straw, it is a way to shift into being mode. I mean, it's kind of a very mindful activity, and it's resistance, but at your mouth. Okay. Progressive muscle relaxation. I'll include one of my favorite YouTube links for this in one of the resources that you all get. But progressive muscle relaxation can be employed midday as a stress management tool. But I also know some people who use progressive muscle relaxation right before bed. Sometimes we hit the pillow and all the thoughts come on. So a great way to shift into being mode while we're sleeping is that we can be laying there, or again, you could be sitting in a chair at the work day when you're feeling stressed out, and you're going to either do head to toe or toe up. But let's say you start at the top and you're going to scrunch your forehead. And then you're going to relax. Then you're going to say, like, scrunch your cheeks and then relax. And then you might scrunch your shoulders, thinking about your shoulders, and relax. Then you're going to do your fists and relax. Okay. If you were trying those movements with me, again, you'll find that it's hard to tick off your to-do list. It's hard to be thinking about what's upsetting you or frustrating you when you're doing these body-based techniques. However, at the same time, because there's some resistance, push, and pull to them, you are releasing and moving through that stress or irritability or worry or whatever it is. So it's a great way to calm your nervous system so that you feel more prepared to kind of plan, okay, what do I got to do next? Because remember, the thing about a body-based strategy is that these obviously aren't problem solvers. It's not going to fix the conversation that you need to have with your boss. It's not going to change, let's say, your workload that you have for the afternoon. However, after you use a body-based strategy, your nervous system will be calmer. It drives clearer thoughts so that you're going to better be able to prioritize. Maybe, okay, I know I have 20 million things to do. I'm going to start with these 5 this afternoon, and I'm just going to focus on this one for the next 30 minutes. Or, you know, I had a really frustrating conversation with my boss, my best friend, whatever it is, and that's really stressing me out today. After you employ some body-based techniques, you might have a clearer head to say, okay, you know, maybe I was in the wrong. Now I'm feeling a little bit cooler. I'm going to try not to think about it, but after work, I'm going to plan on sending a message to whoever it is that I need to maybe repair some conflict with. Or maybe you decide, you know what, it's something that I just need to let rest this week and I'll pick it up next week. All I'm saying is these tools are going to help shift you into clearer thinking mode so that when you do go back to thinking mode, it's not from a stress state. Okay. And then lastly, anchoring into your breath or the heart. So this one, it might feel probably maybe the least grounding in that it's not really a body movement per se, but you are trying to focus your attention either just on feeling your breath as you inhale and exhale. So let's say midday, all you can do is just focus on your breath. What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Or focusing on the area of your heart. So you're still shifting your attention to your body, but it is kind of a quieter thing and maybe something you work up to. Or if you are used to meditating, that might be a great body-based tool for you. Also, not on here specifically, but yes, if you do have some kind of resistance band or a lightweight, excuse me, at work or at home or wherever you might be feeling stressed, frazzled, or overwhelmed, these are also great, easy ways to just add some grounding work. And again, remember, just because they're workout tools doesn't mean you have to like let your mind go to like, oh, I got to do like 20 minutes for this to be good. You know, it's like, no, if we're really just using this just to calm and ground your body, to help get you through the workday so you don't leave so stressed. Just think, if you have like a resistance band next to your desk at work, it might just be doing a set of 3 pulls. maybe you do 3 mindful pull and relaxes in between each of your Zoom meetings. You might notice that that makes a huge difference in feeling like just, dead after 20 Zoom meetings and stressful things. Okay. So that's how you could use that, or even a weight. Again, maybe you keep a weight in your desk and you just do 5 mindful bicep curls. When you start to get ramped up from a work project, and you just once on the hour, you do a set of 5 on each side. So remember, think of these as like they're bonus moves. Maybe it is toning a body part or something, but the focus is that it's grounding your nervous system. So don't get caught up in number of reps or, is this my exercise for the day? I mean, it can be, but it's bonus. Okay. So lastly, I just want to point out that these body-based tools can feel super effective because you can really sneak any of the tools that I just mentioned into a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes. It can be as long as depending on the window that you have. But it's really hard to say, oh, I don't have time for this. I can't manage my stress, because you can. Any of us have time to fit in 3 chair push-ups intentionally, or to, let's say, add some essential oils next to our desk. So maybe you go to the store, or your friend sells Young Living essential oils or doTERRA or whatever that is, or you just go somewhere. Yes, absolutely, you want to try to find a higher therapeutic grade, but anyways, let's just say that scents are calming and relaxing for you. So again, you keep one of these next to your desk. You have time to grab an oil and take a few breaths. Okay. So with these body-based tools, it's hard to say I don't have time, because a lot of them, it doesn't take very long. Or for example, the putty, you can purchase this and you can be working through it while you're doing your Zoom meetings, or while you're doing something else. And know that it is helping with calming and relaxing your nervous system. So as I mentioned, these are just some other tools that you can even add in. So with the oils, some of them make these stressor roller oils that you can just roll on your palms, or you can get a lavender scented lotion or a room spray just to make it more relaxing, calming in whatever your workspace is, or just having some kind of visual reminder like the breathe sign, something that's calming for you though, not something that's going to be annoying. So these are just some of those image examples of whether maybe you're adding a plank pose, maybe you're trying downward dog midday, a chair push-up, or that prayer pose. Those are some of those yoga pose examples. So now's the time where either maybe you were trying some of these tools with me all along, or you can pause the video here and just try out some of them, or go back and rewind, however you want to best just kind of explore some of these. And lastly, I do recommend that you explore different tools. Today and in this webinar, I'm giving you some great ideas, some of the ones that I know are effective, tried and true. But as you're doing this, you might find there are other body movements that are push-pull or that engage your body, that help you shift into being mode, that weren't talked about today, but they could be very effective tools for you. Make sure you're implementing it into habit and routine, which we'll talk about in video 3. All right, so I purposely split the webinar up into 3 parts so that you can kind of watch each section as time allows. Part 3 is going to focus on helping you implement what you learned in video 2 into your own habits and routines. So as an occupational therapist, I feel I've only done half my job if I've done some education. We've explored some of the body-based tools that you can use to add into your day. But then that last part is really helping you, like how are you going to actually implement maybe some of the tools that you've tried, or kind of get you started and get the ball rolling. Because I truly want you to feel like you can better manage your stress, your overwhelm, anxiousness, whatever it is that you feel like can kind of get more overwhelming by mid-work day or midday at home. Maybe you're stressed because all of your kids are at home right now doing distance learning, whatever that is, I want to help you use these tangible tools. So notice that part of your resources that you're getting with the webinar, one of them is a worksheet and some reflection questions to consider. So what time of day do you most feel anxious, stressed, fatigue, tense? Okay, so just think time-wise within your day or within your week, when do you start to feel things build up? That can help us consider maybe when to proactively kind of try to use some kind of stress management tool. So whether that's adding a walk, adding an essential oil, and doing some breathing, adding some chair push-ups or prayer pose, whatever that is, some of the strategies we talked about in visit 2 or in video 2, is that when are they going to be most helpful for you? And then of the tools we explored, which one are you most likely to try? And do you need to purchase or order anything? Okay, so if you really liked the idea of oils, you might want to find someone that either sells essential oils, again, through Young Living or doTERRA, or find a reputable website. You may want to find some TheraPutty. Again, you could try to use, if you do have small kids, you could try to use Play-Doh, but it's just not going to be as firm and resistance-based. So I really do recommend heading to Amazon or a kid's store and finding like resistance putty, TheraPutty, thinking putty. It's going to give you a little bit more of that resistance. And then making sure that as you're trying these tools, what did you try? Did it work? What got in the way? So if you can just spend a little bit of time, I know that takes a little bit of effort on your part, but really, if you can reflect on what works, what's going to fit into my schedule, it's going to help you in the long run feel like you can better manage your stress. So another sheet that you'll get, and again, you may not choose to print these off, the handouts that you get, which is fine, but it gives you an idea of something that you could track in a note in your phone, or you could just jot this down into a notebook. So just having a way to figure out what tools have I explored to manage my stress? Did I try it? Did I like it? Did I not like it? Having those notes to look back on, as well as a way to check off, did you do it? And how many times did you do it? So this is an example of a table you could use, but there are some apps too. I have an Android phone, so I use a repeat habit tracker app where I can just like kind of mark what days I'm doing whatever the habit is. So I find that helpful. As human beings, having that visual reminder is great. And lastly, we're going to talk about the power of habit. So I really like this book. I highly recommend it. And here's why. It can be really helpful when you're trying to add in something new to know maybe what are some of your existing habits. So this is really well outlined in the book, but there's usually when there's some kind of habit that you have, there's a cue or something that kind of triggers you to do the thing. There's the routine, and then there's a reward, and that's kind of what feeds that habit. So for example, maybe the cue is every morning I wake up and I feel the fuzzies on my teeth and my breath is not great. Okay, so that cue has triggered a routine where I brush my teeth. The reward is that my teeth feel great afterwards, my breath smells better, and it's just like, okay, I'm ready to start my day now. Now that has formed into a habit loop to the point where it's just automatic. I don't think about it, but one of the first places I end up in the morning is in the bathroom so I can brush my teeth. The reason bringing this up is helpful is because, let's say for you, every day when you're getting stressed, frazzled, or overwhelmed, one of your habits is, let's say you check out and you go to your phone and you scroll social media. That's become one of your coping habits when you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed. Now, I'm not here to judge your phone use time or how much you spend on Facebook, Instagram, or whatever, but this is crucial information if you want to try to add in a different strategy or add in something else that's also going to help you manage your stress midday. So it could be as simple as, you go to your phone for that. So you keep your putty right next to your phone, or you keep an essential oil next to your phone so that when you go to do some like just mindless scrolling, you're also going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to breathe in my lavender. Or you have a sticky note that says, do 5 chair push-ups, or do some downward dog, or grab your water bottle and do 5 bicep curls. Whatever it is, you're mindfully trying to tack on a new routine with an existing routine, which is grabbing your phone and scrolling. So then after you do that, you might notice like, okay, now I feel a little bit better. And maybe you do still scroll, or maybe you don't. Maybe you find that your stress is feeling better. Either way, that reward is something that we need to consider, meaning take that extra moment to like feel calm, to feel peace, to feel neutral again, or to feel clearer after you do one of these strategies. So that reward is key. In order to kind of get something into a new habit, we need to take an extra moment after we finish the activity and say, that really worked. I feel great. The more we do that, that reward will help our brain be like, okay, I can make this into a new habit now. So those are my extra tips for implementing what you learned in video 2, trying some of those grounding body-based techniques, and how can you now carry this over into your routines to help you feel like you can stay on top of your stress, manage, and shift through it. Thank you. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to connect with me. Well, thank you for hanging in with me for the body-based How to Stress Less webinar. I'd love to connect. Feel free to head to www.mariaservice.com, follow me on Instagram, or just send me an email. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for being here.